Aloha, everyone. This is Chesapeake Movie Thoughts. And yesterday I finally got back out to the movie theater after far too long. It's been too long since I've been out to see the movies. But I finally got back out, and I saw Maleficent Mistress of Evil, the sequel to Maleficent, which is it is considered thrown in with the Disney live action remakes. It's kind of fits as one of those, but not really, in my opinion, because it's not really even trying to tell the same story as the original Sleeping Beauty. It's kind of like the Earth 2 version of that story. If I can borrow something from DC Comics, I've been catching up on The Flash on Netflix lately, so we've got parallel universes, Earth 2, Earth 3, that kind of thing on my mind. So that's kind of how I think of Maleficent in this movie. She's the Earth 2 version of Maleficent, where she's she's the hero. She's not a perfect hero. She has this kind of scary demeanor, and she can be very grumpy sometimes. But she's one of the good guys, even if she can be a little selfish and not be perfect all the time, but ultimately she's one of the good guys. So like the subtitle for this film, Mistress of Evil. Yeah, I was wondering about that because I knew in the first one they had set her up to be more of a hero rather than a villain, and Mistress of Evil actually makes sense in this movie because it refers to the reputation that she has garnered. They because the apparently what we've learned is that the story that's been told about what happened in the first movie is a lot more like the animated version, where Maleficent's been the villain the whole time. So she's had this reputation of being the mistress of evil, where it's not entirely true. And I actually very much enjoyed this movie. I rather like Maleficent. I know it isn't that well received critically, but I rather like it for doing its own thing, for being a little different. And I like Angelina Jolie's performance as Maleficent. I think she does a good job in the first movie, and she did a good job in this one here too. Um, this one this one had they did a really good job of visualizing this kind of fantasy fairy tale world, and it has the feel of this real epic fantasy kind of thing. And I feel like for me personally, when I'm in the mood for something like an epic fantasy, I think this movie would fit the bill nicely. If I get this movie on Blu-ray or something later on when it's released, and I'm just sitting at home and I feel like seeing something of an epic fantasy nature, this might be what I would turn to, because it really kind of satisfied that craving for epic fantasy. Just in how well it just visualized the world of it's this fairy tale world. It's like walking through Fantasyland at a theme park. It looked like that visually. Plus, you have all of these fairy tale creatures and magic and all kinds of stuff like that going on, and it was had a lot of action. I saw it with a friend who was really surprised by how much violence there was in it. Now, it's not like bloody violence. A lot of the times, the violence has to do with death of magical creatures that don't exactly die in the same way. I don't want to give too much away, but the it was really, it was a movie about a war. So there was a war between fairy tale kingdoms, basically, and that's where the violence comes from. But at the heart of it all, how it starts, where it comes from, it's this very kind of human story, which is it deals with Princess Aurora and Prince Philip. Uh, they get engaged. They're going to be married, and it starts off as just the in-laws really kind of not getting along. The in-laws meeting each other and not really getting along, and I feel like that's something that a lot of people would be able to relate to. That sort of like very human story, that sort of very relatable idea of, you meet someone, you fall in love, but your in-laws just don't get along with each other, and that's kind of like how this starts. But it's all set against the backdrop of these two fairy tale kingdoms on the brink of war. So, and that's the kind of thing that really worked for me. You combine like the common and relatable or mundane with this kind of high fantasy, these extraordinary elements. You juxtapose them together. You throw them in together. That really works for me. That's the kind of thing I really like personally. Um, so I very much enjoyed this movie. I would actually recommend this a lot. I don't know if it's being that well received either. I think, given that the first one was not that well received, I think this one probably doesn't have much of a chance of being well received. But I like the first one. I think I like this one even just a little bit better. I think it does a lot of what the first one does, but does it a little bit better. So I have to say that the Angelina Jolie in this was again very good. She's like set up. Maleficent, her character is set up as being sort of the most powerful, having the most powerful magic out of all of them in this universe, in this world. And they, for most of the movie, she's not really part of the action. She's in it. She's in it a lot, but she's not really part of the action involved between the war and the fighting, until the end. And that is probably a good idea. In that, like, a lot of the once she joins the battle, that's kind of just going to decide how the battle's going to go. But a lot of the movie was showing you an internal struggle. The conflict was internal with Maleficent, as she's finding out more about who she is and where she came from, and how she fits into the equation. And it's a matter of like, well, not so much what side she's going to take, but whether she's going to pursue peace or war. That's more of what it is. Is she going to, like? There are people. There are people who are evil, who are trying to start this war for evil purposes. But then there are good people who want this war because they're afraid, or they're angry, and they just think that the war is the only option. So they make good arguments for it. So it's presenting like both sides, the advantages of peace, the advantages of war, and just it's a question of where is Maleficent going to fall on this, and when is she going to make that decision, because that is going to determine how the movie turns out. Not to give too much away, you'll understand when you see it, and I do think you should see it. I think it's a fun movie. It's a fun movie, especially if you like that kind of epic fantasy thing. It's kind of like if you thought Lord of the Rings was too like grounded, which is it's kind of weird to say that about Lord of the Rings, but it kind of is, in that the magic and like the all of that stuff is not flashy in Lord of the Rings. They do that a lot more subtle. Here, the magic and the fantasy and all of it is really in your face, and I like that in a fantasy setting. So personally, that's how I like my fantasy. So if that's the way you like it too, this is a really good movie for that. I've never actually played like World of Warcraft games, so I don't really know what I'm talking about. But I kind of felt like if I were to play World of Warcraft games, I feel like this is probably what I would expect from them. And take that for what it's worth. Again, I may not know what I'm talking about, but that's kind of what I got from it, and it was fun. It was a lot of fun, and I do recommend you go see it. I have not heard a lot of reviews from it, and I feel like it's not getting noticed a lot. So I don't know if it's going to be popular or not. Probably not, but I think it's a shame, because I think it is a good one that deserves to be seen. But anyway, so what did you guys think? Did you see it? Are you going to see it? Like, comment, subscribe, and that's a wrap.